Let's now talk about network load balancer. From configuration perspective, it is almost the same. We would go through the same process, but functionality wise, it has different way of working. So if I focus on network load balancer, it is a connection based layer 4 load balancing. As it is just making a decision based on network layer information, it offers you low latency. It supports private link. Private link is a mechanism when you want to expose your own services to other customers and then allow them to use your services as software as a service. That time private link can be used, and network load balancer is really useful in those cases. Another use case for network load balancer is that it supports elastic IP. So I should be able to have a very static IP or a specific IP always available for my application. So that is elastic IP support. From protocol perspective, it supports TCP, UDP, TLS. Targets which I could have is instances, containers, IP, and even a ALB be a target for a network load balancer. This is a common architecture, and I'll show you this in a minute. Then use cases. Chat sessions maybe where you need to have a connectivity in a faster fashion, game connectivity, IoT services you are running, any media and entertainment workload. Those all can be very useful cases for deploying a network load balancer. So your user would still be accessing a network load balancer, and then they would be having a target behind the scene, and that target could be any of these things. What I'm going to show you here, that I am going to use a application load balancer as a target for network load balancer. In my previous session, we discussed about deploying a application load balancer, and behind it was sending requests to the EC2 instances. So that is good, but that has given me a DNS name. What if I have a customer here and who has a firewall, and they say that, hey, we want to have a IP address which we want to put into allow list here. Now, application load balancer doesn't have a IP address which is static, which is not changing. It can change. So if I can't keep on modifying my firewall rule again and again, so in case you want, you could go ahead and deploy a network load balancer in front. It would be giving you a static IP or a elastic IP, and that elastic IP or static IP, then you can put it into allow list, and this network load balancer can forward your traffic to the to the application load balancer behind the scenes. So this is also possible. So target group, as I mentioned, could be instances, could be container, could be IP, and could be ALB. So we already have one section completed. We already have this section completed with EC2 instances behind the scene, and we would be now putting a network load balancer for our application. All right. So let me go to console and we will quickly get started there. Concept is pretty much same. I would go to EC2 because that is where your load balancer is displayed. Once I'm there, I would be selecting a specific load balancer. This time I would be selecting a application network load balancer. We have ALB already running. I would have my network load balancer now. That load balancer would allow me to have these capabilities like millions of requests per second while maintaining ultra low latency. Then I go ahead and say create. Let me call it NLB01. Very creative name, isn't it? And then I say I would keep it internet facing, both options same. IPv4 dual stack, same options. Network mapping, again same options. You could keep it wherever you want. I would be keeping it across availability zones. One is 1A availability zone, public IP subnet, and then 1B, which is again another public subnet, and I would be using IP address assigned by AWS. Or I could have used an elastic IP address also. So if I have IP address and I want to always maintain that, I could go ahead and do that. But I right now would be let's go ahead and use elastic IP. So yeah, let's use elastic IP like this. So this is my elastic IP which I have. Then I would be having a listener. Maybe I'm listening on same port 80, and where I want to forward to now, I would be saying I want to create a target group, and this time I would be creating a target group which would be made up of a application load balancer. It could be one or more than one also. So here is my application load balancer. I'm selecting that and let's call it ALB TG, right? So this is my ALB target group. Port number 80, I'm not changing it. You could. I'm just sending the same VPC. Health check information is same. I have index.html which I want to refer to. So that is completely fine. And now you could have used any of the health check. I would keep the same. And now I'm trying to keep the threshold to minimum so that we get response faster. In your real life, you would be setting it based on your application requirement and other settings. I would be getting a success code which could be a range like here 200 to 399. That is okay. And then I would go ahead and add someone in this target group. That would be my application load balancer. So if I see this, there is a ALB01. I could have added that application load balancer, or I could add it later also, should not be a problem. So now my target group is ready. Okay, that target group is called ALBTG. I would refer that target group into my load balancer creation. I would refresh here and now I would have my ALBTG available here, right? As I mentioned before, you could have multiple listener, multiple target groups, shouldn't be a problem at all. And this is what my summary is. I would be receiving traffic from internet facing VPC, and this particular load balancer will forward it to this target group in which we have application load balancer, and then it will forward my request to EC2 instances behind the scene. That is completely fine. So now I go ahead and say create load balancer. It may take little time and we would monitor that process here. So this process is going on. I have a NLB01 into the provisioning state. I still get a DNS name, but I would be accessing it by the elastic IP of my choice, what I selected in that case, right? So I would use this, and if I keep on checking further information, I should be seeing detail about this load balancer when it gets created. So let's give it few seconds, let it be ready, and we will come back and revisit what this load balancer is allowing us to do. So after a couple of minutes of wait, my network load balancer is ready. It is active and we have it's a DNS name we could access from here. But if we go and check further, it has an elastic IP associated and we would try to access through that elastic IP. We are listening on port 80, forwarding it to the application load balancer behind the scene, and that's how our traffic would be forwarded, right? So let me grab that elastic IP. I am on EC2 and I have an elastic IP associated here. These are my elastic IPs. This elastic IP is what I use, which is 52 something. I would select and try to open it into a console. And now I am getting a request responded by a EC2 machine. So the design is not something which you would see very often, like just a basic one. But what is actually happening here, that I am sending request to a NLB. NLB forward that request to ALB, and ALB then forwarded to the web server 1 or web server 2. That is what is exactly happening here. The main use case for this is maybe you want to have a static IP here or a elastic IP, and that can be a use case for keeping ALB behind the scene. Otherwise, you could have created here EC2 or your containers, or you could have used IP addresses behind the scene. Let me refresh this page and hopefully I would have response coming from second instance. So this is 1B responding to me. So we just implemented a network load balancer. Concept wise it is same, configuration while it is same, only difference is how the decision for packet forward is made in this particular case. So I hope this is clear and you have better understanding. We haven't talked about additional features of application load balancers, so in future sessions we'll talk about it. Application load balancer has some additional things like you could configure path-based routing, host-based routing. We'll discuss about those concepts into the next section. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you into the next section. Thank you.